In this video, we are going to talk about the close reading of the excerpts from chapters 24 and 25. And we are going to be looking at how the author's language choices helps us understand the characters' contrasting perspectives, and then how that leads to a theme in the novel. So as we read, we're going to be looking for details that give us clues about the characters' emotions or attitudes, and how that language highlights the characters' perspectives. So we've got two excerpts here, Okonkwo's internal reaction to the loss of his culture and his decision to resist and fight back. If the other villagers agree to go to war, he'll go with them. If not, he will avenge himself alone. And then we have the district commissioner's response to Okonkwo's death. So when we're looking at differing perspectives, we know that two people or many people can witness the same event and interpret it very differently based on what they're able to see and what their backgrounds are and what they value. So thinking about what Okonkwo finds important about himself and his culture and his identity versus what the district commissioner finds important about his own culture and his perspective and identity, how do those things clash when we're looking at the way that they each interpret this event? So the first thing we're going to do is take a look at Okonkwo's perspective, and we're going to be underlining or highlighting words and phrases that have strong connotations and reveal tone. So connotation is words that have any kind of strong emotion associated with them, either positive or negative. So words like bitterness, immediately evoke a negative emotion in readers. Anything that has a vivid description, for example, where Okonkwo is describing his warrior costume, where he's shaking out his raffia skirt, looking at his feather headdress, or figurative language, where Okonkwo describes that this other man's empowering words turned every man into a lion. So we're able to picture in our mind with this figurative language fierce warriors who are strong, just like lions. So we're going through the text and looking for these kinds of words and phrases. And we're going to take a look at just a few together, and then you'll do the remainder on your own. So this is after the Igwugwu have destroyed Enoch's compound and the church, and then the villagers are about to get together and decide how to respond. So the village crier was abroad again in the night. He beat his iron gong and announced that another meeting would be held in the morning. Everyone knew that Umofia was at last going to speak its mind about the things that were happening. Okonkwo slept very little that night. The bitterness in his heart was now mixed with a kind of childlike excitement. Before he had gone to bed, he had brought down his war dress, which he had not touched since his return from exile. He had shaken out his smoked raffia skirt and examined his tall feather headgear and his shield. They were all satisfactory, he had thought. So some things that I pointed out, or some things that I noticed, are that he slept very little, and he feels bitterness that's mixed with childlike excitement. So all of these ideas are evoking emotion. We've got this vivid description of him shaking out his raffia skirt, examining his headgear, his shield, and noting that they're satisfactory. So you can pause here, go through the remainder of the text, and identify where the author is using vivid descriptions. He's using words that evoke strong emotion, and using any figurative language. Once you have your initial annotation done, identify tone. So where do you see the author's attitude in the excerpt? How would you describe Okonkwo's tone here? And lastly, when looking at Okonkwo's perspective, we're going to answer these questions in our annotations. So we have the highlighting done. We've got some notes about tone. Now we're going to look at what this reveals to us. So how does Achebe's word choice convey Okonkwo's emotional state? How would you describe Okonkwo's emotional state here as a result of looking at that language? We also want to take a look at how these feelings, or what these feelings reveal about Okonkwo's connection to his culture. What does his culture mean to him? What about his cultural values? What does this show about what he finds important? And then what does this reveal about his internal conflict because of the cultural differences? And lastly, how does the language that Okonkwo uses reflect his view of masculinity? So look at where he is describing manliness versus womanliness. And how does the language reflect his clan's decline and assimilation? And assimilation is when you are like adopting another culture's practices and beliefs. Once you are done with this, you will move on to the annotations for the district commissioner's excerpt.